right, now we're into 2013.
Oh yeah.
Hit us off.
So I haven't seen this film since I watched it back in 2013, but in my view, that can only be one winner of this year, in my view, and it has to be Frozen for me. Like, in my view.
Goodbye.
In my view, again, to be honest, in this year, I didn't find many films which I really resonated with or had watched. Maybe I didn't even watch many films this year, because I actually didn't have very many mentions either for this year. But for me, I think, again, not many. If we're talking about lasting impact, although I suppose we're kind of veering away a bit from actually whether the movie is good or not. But I'll start with that. In terms of impact, I definitely think there are few movies which have more lasting impact than Frozen. The Frozen 2 this year, I think, grossed almost 1.7 billion. Not that I was saying that again means good, but in terms of its cultural impact, I think it's still really big thing. In terms of the movie, again, I feel like, again, the visuals in the movie were very good. I thought the songs all incorporated into the movie were very good. I liked the storyline, and also I liked some of the more themes or sub-themes surrounding love and family and those kind of things. Although, that being said, some of them are, recycled Disney themes, I would say. But, yeah, I actually don't have many honourable mentions for this. I think in terms of 2013, I don't have many movies which I liked, but I would have to say Frozen was the best. What about you? Okay. What is your I can see that you really agree with me there.
Listen, you do you. But I can see where you're coming from. It has had a significant impact on the animated genre.
Yeah.
And it does stand up, I guess, as a significant. It will be one of those ones that's in a lot of people's top 10 lists, I guess, for animated movies.
Yeah, and I think in terms of characters from animated movies, I wouldn't say she stands out as the top one. I would give that title to someone like Woody from Toy Story. What's it called? From Finding Nemo, you could do some from Monsters Inc., etc. So some of these movies, but I think she's still a very significant character, and I did feel again the characters in the movie were developed well, and I thought it was I thought some of the way the movie was portrayed in terms of the twist when you think about it going back, it is fairly that kind of seems obvious, but at the time I remember watching it, I felt quite surprised by that twist and what have you. And I feel like there's also a number of other plots kind of in the movie. There's a relationship between her and her sister. There's him and her boyfriend or whatever, and the two men who have the fight, and also Olaf as well is his journey. So yeah. What is your favourite film of that year?
So my favourite film of this year was
Frozen.
No, not Frozen.
Okay, yes. Sorry, say.
I couldn't think of a more opposite film to Frozen than Prisoners.
Yeah.
This film was my introduction to my favourite director right now, Denis Villeneuve. And you'll see my list is filled with this guy's films. And this was my first. It's not the first film he's made, but it's my first film that I've seen of his. And this is still to this day probably one of the most dark, depressing, dreary films I've ever seen. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, yeah.
Yeah, just everything from it always seems to be raining in the film. The color palette is just so washed out and bland. Not bland, but just washed out and dark. The characters, the performances are so heart-wrenching and it just fills you with dread.
Yeah.
I'm saying that as a compliment because it's quite an achievement to have you care about the characters that much.
Yeah.
And that's from the writing to the performances, everything really. And this is still to this day my favorite film from this director. And I think one thing it really tackles well is that I guess that feeling of dread of how each character represents the dark places that you go to when you are faced with a huge life adversity, which in the case of this film is missing a child, having a child go missing. So, for example, the child's mother becomes very withdrawn and depressed and starts just having loads of sleeping pills, and you just see her just kind of wasting away almost. And then the father, played by Hugh Jackman, he becomes aggressive and he kind of becomes like a vigilante and takes matters into his own hands.
Yeah, and we see again, it's quite graphic, some of those scenes.
Yeah. So I mean, in the film, he goes and kidnaps the person who he thinks is responsible, who's basically like...
He looks like a disabled dude, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a young man with like learning difficulties, and he's torturing him and he's just beating him up just because he thinks, you know, he's responsible for this. But he's not a bad person, but these are the limits he will go to try and save what he thinks is doing is saving his daughter.
Yeah. But it turns out in the end that guy had nothing to do with it.
No, he was a victim of the actual people as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very powerful film, I think, in that way. And when I first saw the film, I was really, really blown away by Hugh Jackman's performance, which is very, very good. But I think I didn't appreciate Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this film.
Yeah, I think he was very good.
And he plays Detective Loki, who's the police officer in charge of researching this case. And there's just so many subtleties in his performance that really make it sell. So, for example, when he's really intense or he's stressed, he starts developing like this twitch in his eye, and just really small things like that. You see he's trying to remain calm under the stress and the pressure, and there's one point where he cracks, and that is like such an emotional point in the film.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it's Prisoners. There's no doubt.
No, I think I understand that. I think at the time when I watched it, I wasn't used to watching those style of films.
Yeah.
I think for me it was just like, oh man, this film is so like profoundly disturbing that I don't like it. But actually, it's been a movie that I've actually never met anyone else who's watched it. To be honest, yeah, I haven't met anyone else who's watched it, and so you were the first person.
Yeah, go and watch Prisoners.
Yeah, I would, and having said it like that, I would 100% agree in terms of setting again a tone for a movie.
Yeah.
This movie does it very flawlessly. And yeah, I remember in terms of getting the audience to really feel quite emotive, I remember just being like, oh my God, like this is kind of mad. I think maybe at that age I wasn't as good at perhaps processing. So I'd never seen a film like that before. So yeah,
it puts you in a position where you question what you would do in that situation.
Yeah,
because throughout the film there are certain points where it does allude to that this guy that Hugh Jackman is suspecting of stealing his daughter, of kidnapping his daughter, is responsible, and so you'd think, okay, no, you do what you need to do to get your daughter back.
Yes, yeah.
And it's whether you would do that. Do you think that's justifiable? So that from that perspective, it was very interesting. I really enjoy films that put you into perspective of the characters and make you question what you would do in these situations.
Yeah.
And this does that perfectly for me. Have you got any mentions?
Yeah, so one of my honourable mentions of the year would have to be Monsters University. I did think that was a really good movie. I think it was a really good addition, and it built upon, even though it's technically a prequel, I think it really built upon the first Monsters University. And we were discussing yesterday some of the criteria for making a good sequel, or like another number two. And I think we're also living in an age where there's being so many, remakes, so many number twos, so many, prequels of movies, that I think whenever we see that, there's always a bit of skepticism, because it just feels like, oh, is this another money grab, basically? I know that both of us felt that about Toy Story 4, when it was coming out. We were very skeptical of that. But I think Monsters University did really well, built on the characters, added to their dimensions as characters, brought like a nice message as well. It didn't undo what was created in the first film, and we didn't either repeat it, as you mentioned last time. And another one would be 12 Years a Slave. It's one I haven't watched, but it's one I really, really want to watch, but I'm kind of a bit scared too, because I know it's quite a heavy movie. But yeah, that would be that for me. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said about Monsters University. It's a decent film. I didn't watch it when it first came out. I think I saw it some years later, but I remember it being enjoyable. So for me, mentions, I'm just going to kind of list them now and mention a few things. So Blue Ruin, which is a film, it's quite a solid low budget film. Did a lot with what they had available to them. Captain Phillips, saw it once, enjoyed it, thought it was okay. And The Conjuring, which I guess is the start of like this generation's kind of brand of horror.
Yeah, what would you say that is? You know, that brand of horror. I haven't seen The Conjuring. Is it like ghost type?
Yeah,
paranormal?
so paranormal.
But how would that differ from like Paranormal Activity or previous Paranormal?
So I guess it's it's more of an aesthetic thing, the way things look. Where there's obviously there's possessions, but with this production company and their films, I can't remember what it's called. They have a very unique way of, or interesting way of filming their horror. They do rely, I think, a bit too much again on jump scares, but they also do have really good moments where it's just good visual horror done right. Where it's sort of examples would be in one of the Conjuring movies, I think it's number 2. In the foreground, you just see someone's reaction to something, but in the background, you can see like something paranormal happening, but it's out of focus and it's blurry, and that kind of adds to the sinister nature of it. So it has a mix of, I think, a few kind of cheapy jump scare stuff, but it's really what I guess is what took off in this generation, or in this decade in terms of horror.
So would you say it was quite not defining movie, but movie that laid the ground for other movies to kind of work from?
And it's all the same universe: Conjuring 2, Ouija, I think, is in the same universe. Sinister, they're all within the same thing. So there's a lot of films this year that were like the Oscar films, I guess, that I haven't seen. So 12 Years a Slave was a film that, again, I haven't seen that I really want to watch. But then there was Her, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, Nebraska, Inside Llewyn Davis. All these
you haven't
films.
seen Gravity?
No.
Yeah, I've seen Gravity.
You have?
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Incredible depiction of space and incredible scenes in that movie. But it's just not memorable for me. It's not a movie I would want to watch. It's not a movie I would watch again. It's not a movie which, even while watching it, I felt particularly invested in. It's just, I think, more purely about the visuals of the movie and the creation of space, which I don't think is enough to give that movie the high position in that year.
Fair enough. You know, I've heard people either say this movie was, obviously everyone commends the visuals, but they say everything else was either super underwhelming or they absolutely loved this movie. I've heard both ends of the spectrum, but I haven't seen it myself. Maybe one day I don't know. No, I haven't got a particular drive to want to go and watch this, if I'm honest.
No.
Okay. Do you want to kick us off for 2014, or is it my go?
No, you're going to kick us off for 2014. Okay.
So I want to start off by saying that I think for me, 2014 is the best year for film of this decade.
Really?
Yeah. For me.
Oh, I thought it was okay. Okay,
I know what you're saying. So this was our.
But I know why. I already know why.
Why?
I think it's because of Interstellar.
No,
it's not.
It's it's a banger, but it's not even my film of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why you think I like.
Because in our group, basically, when we all went to watch Interstellar, this was in first year. I still remember as a flat. And pretty much no one in our flat understood the movie. Everyone left being like, "What the hell was that?" And you were, and Zain was like, "Oh my god, that was such a sick movie." And Zain was explaining to us like the fabric, space-time continuum, and all this. Yeah, because there was like that fabric at the end, and that's meant to be like the space-time or whatever, and no one understood it except you.
I don't think I understand it now. I don't know what I was on back then, but yeah, fair enough. It's in my mentions, but Sure. So I think the reason why, so you mentioned it was our first year of uni, and I remember there was a period of like maybe a week, less than a week, a few days, where every night I was watching a different movie.
Oh, really?
That would come out that year, and it was like, just like banger after banger after banger, like really, really incredible films that I really, really enjoyed. Maybe I just watched a lot of films this year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
do you think it's because you consumed a lot of
Maybe,
cinema?
But all of them, everyone I watched was really, really
amazing. So it must have been.
Yeah. And from just looking back at the list, these are all films that are really, really good.
Yeah.
So my film of the year was Gone Girl.
Okay, I haven't seen Gone Girl.
Haven't seen.
The book, Daisy, so my partner has read the book. She says it's a really, really good book, but she hasn't watched the movie.
Okay, yeah. I might read it then. Yeah, like this movie is just it's a David Fincher film, and what you get with a Fincher film is like it feels like a product. I don't in that it's so well crafted and well made. He's known for his like kind of OCD nature of wanting things to be the shot to be completely perfect, and he'll do 30, 40, however many takes until he gets the shot exactly how he wants it. So you'd think that would make his films feel overproduced or too clean, but it doesn't. They still feel very authentic. But this movie, I like. It's a crime thriller, and it's a how you describe, like, just basically a thriller, a mystery movie as well. And never did I feel bored, and I was always trying to guess what's coming next or where the story's going. And the characters of played by the two leads, they're really, really solid. They're very, very good. And it's a movie that feels like it's made for an adult audience. There's nothing in there there's nothing that's thrown in there just for the sake of it. There's no like silly love interest or like something for the kids, or just some silly humor. Everything just feels very well orchestrated. And yeah, it's just it's a very, very, very solid movie overall.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I might have to. It's a film I definitely want to watch. I think the title kind of put me off a bit because I was just like, this sounds like a bit of a strange movie.
Okay.
But it's one that a lot of people have told me about, so I think I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, and I'll read the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not one film can't make a film, but it can't make a year. I think in my opinion, the best year of film for this decade. So there was so many other top contenders, and this is actually quite a difficult year to choose from. So some of my mentions are Whiplash, Birdman, Nightcrawler, Interstellar, John Wick, The Raid 2, Grand Budapest Hotel. So for me, those are all really solid films.
Yeah, the only one I've watched is Interstellar.
All right.
So
you should watch the rest.
Yeah. So I might have to watch the rest, then I can agree or disagree with you.
Fair enough. What about for you? What was your best film this year?
So for me, like, again, this wasn't a very good year for me personally.
Fair.
I think I didn't actually watch I hardly watched any movies this year. I was just too busy studying all the time.
I wasn't.
But so again, I think this year my insight of movies is not that good because I haven't watched any of those films except Interstellar. But actually, no, that came out the following year. But I would probably say Theory of Everything. That's a film which still now I kind of think about, and I think has had a lasting impact on me. I think it's a really fantastic performance by Eddie Redmayne. I think he's a very good actor anyway, and I think this movie encapsulates so well someone who's so iconic. He hadn't, and obviously was still alive in 2014, Stephen Hawking. His experience, firstly, as medics, people who do medicine, I think it was so interesting to see the effect of disease on someone's life, from someone who's so normal, with so much potential, and this slow, debilitating disease, how it takes over him, motor neuron disease, and its effects on his relationships, its effect on his mental health, and how he kind of strives through that, and he still manages to push through that and become one of the most, profound and influential scientists in whole of history. And for me, I thought that was it was done so well, and again the acting was really good. So for me, Theory of Everything, but I haven't watched many movies that year, so that's why probably.
No, I actually saw that movie not too long ago, the other day actually. Kind of on and it was on, and it was in the background. But I agreed. What stood out the most was Eddie Redmayne's performance. How he kind of shows the different stages of the disease, and how it would affect a person. That was done amazingly. That's the character performance in terms of like his body movements and how he shows to be able to show emotion as through the performance of someone has a disability, like a physical disability, is quite impressive.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, like to put yourself into that as if you were to have that disease, and how you'd struggle to make like certain facial expressions, and then to perform that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then also, you see a lot of the the things that I wouldn't think that they would touch upon, like his relationship with his wife, and then the difficulties she was having.
Exactly.
And I think at one point she kind of, I don't think she says it, but it's hinted that he was only predicted to live for 2 years. And then so she gets married to him with, I think that expectation, and then he lives for way longer, and she can't really, she's struggling.
Deal with it, yeah.
So I think they have a divorce. They get divorced.
Yeah, they get divorced.
So that was interesting to see. It felt very honest.
Yeah, and I think the portrayal of love in this movie as well, I really liked. So early on in the movie, fairly early on, he falls in love at Oxford, and you see it, and I felt it was very, I think love in movies can be portrayed in a really bad way. How it is, I think, a lot of the time in a very romanticized manner, in the sense that it's meant for. I don't know, I think it can be, it's either hypersexualized or just overhyped, and all this type was shoved in. But I think the way that it was done in this movie, it felt really sincere, really authentic, and I really liked that about Theory of Everything. So yeah.
Nice. I respect that choice. Gets the Zain approval.
Zain approval. That's good.
All right. 2015. I think either of us could go, and I'm assuming it's gonna be the same choice. I may be wrong, but
yeah, no, I think it probably will be. So for me, I think without a shadow of a doubt, this year for me was The Revenant.
Yeah.
This is one of my all-time favorite films for me personally. And for me, I think there's just so many elements of this movie which are done so well. From the visuals, I think the visuals are absolutely stunning in this movie. The camera work, I think, is incredible. The opening scenes of the continuous camera shot, I think it's one of the best openings to a movie that I've seen in a really, really long time. I thought that the performances by all the characters were really good. I felt that there was to the main characters, there was so much depth to those characters. I thought that felt really highly invested in those in the characters, and the portrayal of like a villain was one of the best again I've seen. I think Tom Hardy's for the most part really, really good at portraying villains, and also just in general as an actor. And when I was watching this film, I just hated him so much. I was like, Tom Hardy
really?
as a villain.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. So I think that I felt that quite a lot, and also how the movie has a simple storyline. The storyline is very simple, but that's not what the movie is about. What drives the movie is the characters, is seeing that determination of the main character, that want for retribution for the death of his son, and something so how such a simple storyline can be propelled, I think, through their characters, through their visuals, through the camera work. I think makes this film one of the best that I've seen.
You've said everything I wanted to say pretty much. Literally all the points that I've got written, you've said the performances, the visuals, the camera work. The only other thing I think is, like, again, it comes back to that, seeing a movie that changes your perception of what a film can do. And this was one of those moments that, like you said, that opening shot where they're kind of having that fight at the start, where their camp gets raided. The way the camera there's one point where it's just panning slowly, and you see all of this visceral action going on in the background, and it's you've never seen anything that real looking before in a movie. It just blows you away. You're like, it kind of takes you back a bit. And you mentioned you hated him as a villain. I thought by the end, when he kills DiCaprio's son, fair enough, yeah. But I think before that, you kind of I understand where he's coming from, in that he's what
was his thing? I can't remember.
So DiCaprio gets attacked by a bear, and he's kind of extremely, he's on death's door basically, and his thing was to just leave him and go on without him, because it was too laborious to be carrying him, and he wanted to carry the whatever it was that they were. I don't know what it was that they're carrying with them.
Oh yeah, because they're transporting something.
Some bounty or something.
Yeah.
And he wanted to take that instead. And he says that you either there's no, I can't remember what the quote is, but there's only like surviving. Like this is how they make their living. This is what they live to do, and I can understand that. Like he's in such a difficult life. He's living such a difficult life, and this is his kind of sole purpose, and this is stopping him from doing that. So in that regard, I can see where he comes from. But obviously, he takes things to a level that is
too far.
Yeah. Solid movie, and probably in my top 5, top 10 movies of all time for me.
Any honourable mentions?
A few actually. So Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, that was a movie I was going to say that I remembered you guys watching. You and a friend watching. And I remember you. I haven't seen it actually, but I remember you saying that was a good movie.
Yeah, that's if a lot of people would probably put that as their top for this year. Spotlight, which is a movie I saw this year, 2019, but I think it won the Oscar for best film, and it's a very, very, very good film. Sicario, again another Denis Villeneuve film.
That's a very good film.
Yeah, Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight, yeah, very good film as well.
Excellent film. Black Mass.
Very good film as well. How come this isn't your favourite year?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think 2014 is just more. There's more on this list, but the others just hit higher.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this year had quite a clear winner as well.
Yeah.
That year was a bit more difficult.
It's true. Yeah, this year has a very clear winner.
The Lobster. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a very kind of very dark comedy. Very strange movie. Anomalisa is this? It's like a claymation movie, and it's the most realistic claymation I've ever seen.
Okay.
And it's the amount of effort that went into this movie is crazy. It's a really good film. Creed. And Room.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an early A24 film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, again, look, this is a solid year for film. Actually, looking back.
So you didn't put Inside Out on there?
Is it not? It was this.
It came out this year.
I'm afraid you might attack me and the camera's just cut off if I put Inside Out on my list. I haven't seen Inside Out, and
oh, you haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, I thought you had seen it.
No, it was a movie I was actually really excited for, because I think it was the first Pixar movie to come out in a while. Because what was before that? Was it Finding Dory before or after? Or
it was after.
Yeah.
But one hadn't, I think, come out in a while.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I was excited to see it, but I never got around to it.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe stay clear of it.
Fair enough. Do you want to? Oh no, 2016. So this is my turn, right?
Yep.
So 2016. So for me, this is another Denis Villeneuve film, and it's Arrival, which is the first 5 minutes of this movie is some of the most emotional. The first, maybe even the last 5 minutes, one of the most emotional scenes of any movie I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
And it's which is really strange for a movie that's basically an alien invasion movie, for it to be so emotionally compelling. But I think the reason why is because what the movie is really about is about human nature, and about communication, and about languages, and about how we how we communicate with one another, and how important that is. And the aliens are just, they're physically and metaphorically, they're just a vessel for that, for us, for learning about that.
So would you say like the subtext of the film is very profound, basically?
Yeah, highly profound. I think this is a movie. This would be on people's best movie of the decade list.
Really?
Kind of, for me, it's not personally.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah,
and it sounds surprising, though, considering you said it's an alien movie, which is something which I'm not usually a fan of. But I might have to watch it. It's not
a blockbuster. I would say it's a very clever movie. It's a very intelligent movie. Because in the movie, it's an international crisis. There's which obviously an alien invasion is going to be, but there's these pods that land on different parts of the earth, and it forces people of conflicting countries to basically try and work together. And yes, it's a very, very, very good movie. The tone is similar to Prisoners, where it's not as dark, and it is dark, but it's not as dreary. It's more somber. It's more peaceful. Is not the word I'd use, but it's not as aggressive in its
style.
Yeah. But
I understand. Yeah.
The visuals are very similar in terms of its grey look, I guess, and that kind of creates this very moody atmosphere. But yeah, what about you?
So again, for this film, for this year, I couldn't really find very many films I liked this year. So this year again for me was not that high. In fact, I would say there was no real film that stood out for me. Maybe again it was because I didn't watch very much films this year, and so I put Fantastic Beasts as number one, which I did think. I mean, have you seen Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them?
No.
So I really like this film. I know that there's a lot of people who don't like it. The second one, I can't remember the name of it. A lot of people don't like, but I thought this first one was done very well. I thought that again, it was a nice take of. It was a nice spin on Harry Potter in that the world still felt with like it was part of that world, but it was beyond that. It was adding to that in a way which didn't feel again like it ruined the original Harry Potter, which is a difficult task to do something like that, and I think they managed to do that. I think that the storyline was very interesting. I felt very interested in the story, and again, the visuals in the film I thought was very good. Eddie Redmayne plays the main character, and again, some of the characters in the movie I thought were really vibrant. I thought they were very interesting, but I wouldn't say it's again one of my most favorite best films of all time. But I did think it was a solid film for that year. But again, I don't have many films to compare it to because I didn't like many films or watch many films that year.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean I haven't seen it, but I know how much you love Harry Potter. So if it's something that you feel is true to that, and it still lives within that world, which is, as you mentioned, is so finely crafted, then I can imagine it'd be pretty decent in your eyes.
Any honourable mentions or dishonourable or just mentions?
Just mentions mainly honourable. So Manchester by the Sea, again a movie with some very emotional moments. Not I guess not as much throughout as Arrival. It's not as heavy with the tone. Or I don't remember being not to my memory, but again, still a very good movie. Very good performances. Nocturnal Animal, a very good movie again with Amy Adams, who's the lead of Arrival and who's also in this movie, the lead of both. 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is kind of like a clever kind of little sci-fi film. Ending kind of ruins it. It's really like well made throughout, and then they throw in this like really unnecessary big alien scene, and it just feels really forced.
Okay, yeah.
The Nice Guys, which is again one of the better comedies of this decade, as well as Hunt for the Wilder People, which is a really nice comedy.
Okay, is that a kids movie?
No. I mean, it's not really. No, it's kind of not a kids movie. I think kids would watch it, but it's not aimed at kids specifically, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen probably one of the bigger ones, which is La La Land.
Yeah, there were like a few other big movies this year, which, but I just didn't rate them that much. La La Land I haven't watched as well. That's a big one. Another big one was Suicide Squad.
I mean, that would probably get a huge dishonorable mention.
But it probably would get a huge dishonorable. I haven't watched it,
Me neither.
but I've watched again analyses of these videos, and ultimately, yeah, it was a bit of an L, unfortunately. Another big film this year, which again I haven't watched, nor do I particularly want to watch, is Moonlight. But that is maybe I will watch it because it won a few awards, I think, as well.
I think it won the Oscar, yeah.
But another big film this year was Finding Dory, which is unfortunately I think is one of the worst sequels of any movie.
Wow.
And I have a good reason for it. In that, number one, there's quite a few like Nemo plays almost no. There's quite a few like purposeless characters. Nemo in the movie plays pretty much no role in the movie. There's a variety of other purposeless characters. Number two, the premise is repeated of the first movie, and missing like having to. I get finding thingy, but it's pretty much a repetition of the same thing over again, and I don't think that like Monsters University doesn't do that. Toy Story 2, 3 doesn't do that. Even Shrek, for all it's like
Shout out
Shrek doesn't do it. It felt really repeated, and in addition, even Dory as a character, I feel it undoes a lot of what was created in the first film, whereas, Marlin and Dory are meant to kind of, by the end of the first film, be, together and friends again, or understand each other, whereas in Finding Dory, it's kind of like right from the start, there are, like, Marlin is being, like, mean to Dory again. It's just like, where did this come? You've just been on, like, some massive adventure together. So I felt like it committed those cardinal sins in that it repeated what was done. It undone what was done in the first movie. And, yeah, another thing I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. And Pixar better watch their back with you around. You're just gunning down all their films.
Yeah, Inside Out, Finding Dory.
Bang, bang.